Hello and welcome everybody to the second episode of the Star Wars fan podcast, Rangers of the Old Republic. You're here with Darth Zach and my partner in crime,
the Space Wizard.
And tonight we have something very special for you on ROTOR Episode 2, Attack of the Special Editions. And of course, the topic for tonight's show is home video releases of the original trilogy, and yes, we are going to talk about the controversy surrounding the original unaltered trilogy, the special editions, the different versions of the post-special edition DVD releases and whatnot, everything up to the Despecialized editions that have come out on the internet in the last few years.
Okay, so let's talk about nomenclature here first.
All right, let's talk about that.
Okay, because this is going to be very important. When we talk about the original trilogy, 1977, 1980, 1983 releases of Star Wars A New Hope, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, and Star Wars Return of the Jedi.
Well, if we're talking about nomenclature, do we call it A New Hope or do we call it Star Wars?
Let's just focus on...
Let's call it A New Hope.
Okay, let's say this. When I was in high school, they released all three on VHS together in a clamshell case. Okay?
Are we talking about
on VHS.
the ones that had the movie poster artwork or the ones that had the half faces?
It had the half faces on it.
Okay, that's the same VHS release that my parents got when I was a kid.
Okay. So we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay. Before that, of course, they had the movie poster releases
on VHS.
And
then around the same time, they also had the OT on Laserdisc.
Yes. Okay. So, 1995, I was 14. We get this for Christmas. It's labeled to me and my two brothers because I guess they all figured we could split it up or whatever. Of course, we weren't going to take it out of the clamshell. Okay, this is considered original release, right?
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
I would say it's 99.9% original release. The one thing that sets it apart, well, other than the movies were adapted to make them full screen into a 4:3 aspect ratio. So there was that change. However, the one noticeable change that would actually deviate in any way, because stuff for full screen, that's just the story of VHS. That just is.
Yeah. That's just the medium.
1995 releases are the first time
they were Dolby Master.
Star Wars is called Episode 4: A New Hope.
I thought that was after. Okay.
On Blu-ray, on Laserdisc, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Okay, time out.
On Laserdisc, it was just Star Wars.
I thought when they re-released Star Wars in the summer of 1978, it was renamed Star Wars A New Hope as the tagline, because they knew that the second installment was coming out because of the massive success of Star Wars. They knew that the sequel was coming out. They didn't know what the name was yet. It was at this point. It was still Star Wars 2. It wasn't
5.
It wasn't Episode 5. It was Star Wars 2. That's what they were calling it. Okay, but this is the first time on home release that it's called A New Hope.
Yes.
Okay. We have what we call our baseline datum then.
Yeah.
For VHS.
Yeah.
Okay. 2 years after that, what happens?
Special edition.
The special edition.
That was a hell of an experience because I still clearly remember being very excited about the special edition.
Oh, yes. Let me give you... Okay, here's my experience waiting for the special edition. It's Thanksgiving Day, 1996. Okay? And we're waiting it. We're in the theater. Bud is in seat. Okay? And we're ready to see the movie, the now classic Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger
and Sinbad.
And Jake Lloyd. Okay? Future Darth Vader here.
Future Darth Vader.
Okay? And suddenly, the movie magic appears on the screen of watching the Star Destroyer come out of a home TV set.
Yeah, I remember that commercial.
Yeah, and it just blew us all away because they were now promising us things like new footage adapted into the medium of home release. Okay, and on the big screen.
And updated special effects.
Updated imaging, by imaging I mean that they literally had to scrub the film to make it look like it was brand new.
Yeah.
Okay, and like Dolby remastering or something like that.
Yeah.
And THX sound. Okay, so this was all better sound quality, better picture quality, and brand new added scenes, and the whole theater, went like, yeah!
Ooh,
There was a collective fan oohing and awing.
Yeah.
And this is only weeks away. This is January 1997. Okay, so this was November 1996. So everybody's pants got tight. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then we sat through A New Hope special edition, and we were less than thrilled.
I had a different reaction to it, but remember, you were in high school. I was 8 years old. Yeah, I was 8 years old when the special edition came out, so I had just seen the original versions for the first time when I was 7.
Yeah.
And then the very next year, the special editions were coming out. And I remember they went heavy with the promo.
Oh, yeah.
They got all these fast food chains in on it. I remember Pizza Hut. They had Han Solo pizza boxes and Stormtroopers shooting pizza boxes.
Taco Bell had
AT-AT pizza boxes.
Taco Bell had their little kids meal at the time.
That's
still.
right. They had the Star Wars kids meal.
And they had toys in the kids meal.
Yeah, so the promo was going real heavy.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember my parents were super stoked to go see the special edition of A New Hope. And then them being, they like Star Wars, but they're not Star Wars fans, not the same way that we are. So, they saw a new version of the new one. They were pretty satisfied with that. They did not particularly feel the need to pay for the whole family to go to the movies to see the other two when we got them at home. And I still remember my parents telling me, "You've got them right here." And I'm like, "But Mom, this is special edition, new footage,
it's
new special effects, updated imaging, it's special." So I remember having that fight with my parents and being super excited, but also what a lot of people thought when the special editions were coming out and even marketed for VHS, they thought that this was actually going to be a special edition, as in some kind of a limited edition. This is it. This is the only time that we're going to show the movies updated in theaters, and then this is the only time we're going to release it on home video with these effects, maybe for 20 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So everybody was stoked to see that, and it was like, it was actually a special event. And as a matter of fact, if they had done it like that, made it an actual special edition, then those movies would be collector's items, or they would be like that alternate version that people have a party to watch. Let's, I just got my master's degree. Let's smoke a fat joint and watch the special editions, But we had no idea that Lucasfilm, under the decision of George Lucas, because this was his baby, they were going to just come out and say, no, this is Star Wars now.
Yes, this is
canon.
the baseline. This is the
Greedo
new
shot first.
This is the new baseline. So
Jabba the Hutt looked like a bitch in Episode 4, and Han stepped on his tail. The biggest freaking gangster in that sector of the Outer Rim, and you owe him money, and you're just going to step on his tail.
Yes.
Sure.
That was what we kind of cringed at nowadays.
And I still remember people like, "Oh man, you get to see Jabba the Hutt in Episode 4." I'm like, "What? You get to see Jabba the Hutt in Episode?" And I didn't critically weigh out the scene because again, I was 8 years old. But just it was cool. The Jabba the Hutt's out there in the spaceports, and then Boba Fett. Well, as an 8-year-old, I was just stoked that we got to see Boba Fett for 5 seconds. On screen. I did not realize the actual gravity of that. By having that scene the way it was, they not only undermined the Jabba the Hutt character, but they basically relegated Boba Fett to like shopping mall Santa Claus security. You know what I'm saying? Like he's guarding Santa Claus from the Karens. Yeah. That's what Boba Fett is doing in Episode 4 at the Mos Eisley Spaceport. That said, there were other things that did really cool. Like I liked the updated explosion for the Death Star. It was cool to see what they did with the engines. What did they do for Empire Strikes Back? They didn't have Ian McDiarmid yet. They didn't do that until the DVD.
They didn't do that until
correct.
the DVD release.
But they still had. I don't know what the hell was that party at the beginning of Jabba's palace. They still had special edition 1997. Jabba had a lawn. You remember that? The big hill that Jabba's palace is on is covered in grass.
What?
I shit you not. Yeah, this is a thing. This is absolutely a thing. The hill that Jabba's palace, and this is only in 1997 special edition. They scrubbed it again for the 2004 DVD release. Yes, in the special edition, in Return of the Jedi, Jabba has a huge-ass lawn.
And okay, so Empire, they added parts. The only real part that they added that was special in Empire is when they go to Bespin. And they added Bespin to make it look more like the McQuarrie kind of paintings. And they actually added some Ralph McQuarrie machinery out in the clouds. And they had enhanced crowd scenes. Because when you see the original one, it's rather stark. Like they didn't have a lot going for it in the original release. But in the special edition, they actually had more extras, and you can tell
they used some real basic sets for Cloud City in the actual filming of the movie, and even the CGI was real, bare bones, real basic. So in the special editions, you could see that they use computer animation to add more depth and detail to Cloud. So that stuff was cool. But
because
again,
here's the last movie, the only movie I saw in theaters in 2020. Okay, the only movie that I saw in 2020 was the re-release of Empire Strikes Back for the 40th anniversary. And it was the special edition. And when I saw this movie again in theaters, things clicked inside of me that I really didn't click before. And it was basically that as you got deeper into Cloud City, the more dangerous it became. The lighting effects started to change. The lighting became more menacing. The soundtrack even has like some, it just sounds more attractive as you enter than as you leave. It even sounds more menacing. Like it just sounds like they actually did more homework with Bespin than ever before. So I was actually pleased with Empire Strikes Back.
So all of that stuff was really cool. That said, generally most Star Wars fans thought that the special edition was actually going to be a special edition and not just a dry run for the 2004 re-release, or not a dry run for Lucas's master vision of Star Wars. Because, just like you told me before, some Star Wars fans who say for them there is only the original unaltered trilogy.
Yeah.
And everything else is just an evil lie. Donald Trump is going to be sworn in as the 19th president. There is only the original unaltered trilogy.
That's it.
And nothing else exists.
Nothing else.
I respect that point of view, but at the same time, that cuts you off from so much awesomeness that did come after. I think so much of the drama that came in the years after could have been solved if they actually made the special editions into a one-time thing.
Yeah.
Or if George Lucas wanted to say, no, this really is my vision for what this movie should be, then let's go into Criterion collection territory and let's just start making the multi-disc DVDs, where one of them is the George Lucas's vision updated version that a lot of people tolerate, but it's not the one that they prefer.
They should have an original trilogy version, which is
the original.
Which the only thing that they should do, by the way, they all that they need to do for the original trilogy version is get the 1995 version of Dolby Sound, and don't even touch up all the special effects, but just clean the film, and that's it. Just re-release that new updated sound, and not by updated I mean that like they make it clearer, and then they make the picture clearer, and that's it. I don't care about all the other like they could do better CGI editing, because there are parts where like you're looking through the snowspeeder window on Hoth and you see the AT-AT bleeding through because they just rotoscoped or they just painted over the frame. It just became a matte painting of the hand animated, AT-AT walker. So I mean, there's things that they could do like that, and then re-release it and put it on DVD, and then Disney would make money that way. You know, like I don't see a problem with that.
Now enter 2004, 2005. So we now have had 2 prequel Star Wars movies come out.
Yes, we're waiting for the
Episode
third.
3 has not yet come out in theaters. We know generally what's going to happen. We don't know how it's going to happen. Order 66 is not yet in the Star Wars fandom lexicon because it hasn't happened yet on screen. So we're still waiting for Episode 3. And then in order to do that tie-in, they release the updated, so the even more special editions. Even more special, I got it. We'll just call them 2004, the super special edition, which is a lot closer to his actual vision for what he wanted this movie to be. All right, I get that. But everybody's thinking, oh my gosh, is this finally going to be the original trilogy version on DVD? And it was, no. This was a new, more updated, more CGI, totally different cut from what was the 1997 special edition. They made Jabba look less crappy in the Episode 4 scene because remember the special editions, like the CG Jabba was all green.
I still can't believe that Han Solo steps on Jabba's tail.
Do.
Because that was the only footage that they had.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if they made such a glaring omission of Jabba's character, they should have just left it on the cutting room floor. Or if you really want to put it on the DVD, make that one of the deleted scenes under the special features. Don't put that crap in the movie. Yeah. Or find a way where you can cut to seeing like Chewbacca standing on the gangway or something like that, and you hear the dialogue. Yeah. And you don't see him stomp on Jabba's tail. Yeah. Yeah, that could have been done. Another thing is, all right, so there are changes that we can understand for the 04 DVD release and the 05 re-releases, and then there are other changes that are kind of WTF. So, like my favorite change that they did was inserting Ian McDermott as the Emperor. Yeah, so inserting Ian McDermott as the Emperor, that's fine. Putting in Temuera Morrison's voice because Boba Fett is a clone, all right, that's fine. Nobody's mad about that kind of thing, but stepping on Jabba's tail, they should have just taken that out after the 1997 special edition because it's so against everything that he is the most feared crime lord in that freaking sector of the Outer Rim. Yeah. And this little mouthy pilot who's got assassins going after him is just going to walk right up to him and step on it like, no. Second of all, when did Michael Corleone ever travel to the airport to go kill somebody? You know what I'm saying? Like the only times he specifically was there, present for that, was when it was something super personal. But even killing Fredo, he had an assassin kill Fredo in the boat. So in the whole gangster mentality, again, why is Jabba the Hutt there? I get it. George Lucas had this character in the 70s and 80s that he was trying to work with and still trying to flesh out. But why is that still there? We can tolerate the updated engines on the X-Wings. Nobody cares about that. We can tolerate the updated explosion for the Death Star. Nobody cares about that. I will even state replacing things on computer consoles that were in English with Galactic Basic. All right, I understand that. That's not fine. A problem with that. Why are we going to be changing up dialogue between Vader and the Emperor? Why are we having Han Solo stepping on Jabba the Hutt's tail? Why is that singing alien still in the party scene at Jabba's palace? Oh, the one that goes, ah! Yeah. There are definitely some cringeworthy moments. So let's get to the next juicy story in this saga, which was the super drama queens, myself included, at originaltrilogy.com. And if there was any one single thing that catalyzed originaltrilogy.com, well, no, it wasn't a single thing. It was probably the combination of three things. Number one, it was a lot more the Jabba, Han Solo stepping on Jabba's tail than it was Death Star explosion. That's number one. Number two,
George Lucas straight up said, "No, this is it. This is going to be the only Star Wars from now on. It's my movies, yada yada yada." And then number 3, 25-year-old Hayden Christensen at the end of Return of the Jedi next to Force Ghost Yoda and Force Ghost Alec Guinness. Those 3 things, but the number one piss-off factor definitely was George Lucas or Lucasfilm. I forgot who put out that letter, but it was basically, yeah, we're glad that you enjoyed the movies. This is Star Wars now, yada, yada, yada. Go F yourselves. So...
Oh, wait a minute. I thought there was one more factor.
What was one more factor?
Han shot first.
Oh, you know what? I had blocked that because of emotional damage, but as a matter of fact, I did not used to give a shit about that until I read about it on unaltered.com, and just in very few paragraphs, they broke down the character analysis of who Han Solo is. It's silly that you want to make Han Solo more of a good guy and less of a villain at that stage, because he's literally a freaking drug smuggler. Spice is a drug. He is smuggling drugs so that the military does not catch him for a cartel, okay? And he's got death bounties on him, all right?
That's like
This is not a Boy Scout.
Yes, that's like the plot to Air America.
Yeah, pretty much. So Han shot first, and yeah, it was absolutely silly that they would try to make Greedo shoot first, and in the way that they did with the weird CGI, let's just duck my head a little bit to the side and the rest of my body doesn't move. Yeah, that was strange, but originaltrilogy.com, they had this big old petition that hundreds of thousands of Star Wars fans from all over America and all over the world signed so that George Lucas and Lucasfilm would finally release, at the very least, a limited edition DVD and or Blu-ray release of the original unaltered trilogy. And as a matter of fact, in order to further motivate Lucasfilm, a lot of people were boycotting the new Star Wars. They weren't boycotting Star Wars in its entirety because they're still watching the original unaltered trilogy at home on their VHSs or on their laser discs. But there were some super hardcore fans that made an analog transfer of the digital video from the Laserdisc, which had superior quality, to the 1995 VHSs, and then they put them on the internet. So if you had 30 hours to sit there letting it stream on BitTorrent, then you could have the original unaltered trilogy to watch on your computer. Now, mind you, this is before HDMI cables. This is before smart TVs. You had to be dedicated enough to sit there upright and watch 3 movies on your freaking computer. But for a lot of people, original unaltered Star Wars, in the closest thing we could possibly get to digital quality, high definition, that was beautiful. So they had these links available on originaltrilogy.com, and it was all these Star Wars fans saying, no, literally, Lucasfilm, we are not buying your products anymore until you give us what we want. And I understand what their demands were. On one hand, it's like, who are you to demand something of an artist? You know, who is your public to do that?
Yeah.
But at the same time, and they made this point multiple times in The People versus George Lucas, at no time do you see Pablo Picasso coming out and changing one of his paintings 20 years later and saying, no, this is it. The version that you liked, that was actually a rough draft. It was wrong. I should have never released it. This new version with the changes, not the one that you fell in love with, this is the real painting. You're never going to see the old one again. That would have absolutely pissed off the art world.
Yeah.
He would have been booed out of the academies and booed out of the coffee houses. And again, South Park made a really good episode about that, with them doing sexual violence on Indiana Jones and the Stormtroopers, and George Lucas saying, because in the South Park episode, they confront him, you said you yourself spoke against the colorization of black and white films to preserve film history. And he goes, but this is different. These are my movies. And in a sense, yes, they are. But in another sense, these are people who bought a goddamn empty box.
Yeah.
In the summer or in December of 1977.
Yes.
They bought an empty box just out of pure fan loyalty.
Because
all the
those
first
kids had to have their Star Wars
that were
TV.
crappy.
Had to
all
have
of
their
it.
Star Wars toys.
Yep. All that stuff. So these are the people who not only went to see it in theaters and then showed it to their kids, 15, 20 years later. These are people who paid for the theater admission ticket, and then they paid again for the 1995 VHS re-release, and then they paid again for the special edition in theater and on VHS, and then they paid again to see the prequels and own those.
These are the
and then they paid again for the 2004-2005 DVD releases of the OT.
These are the people who stood in line in 1998 to watch the preview. Because at this time...
These are the people who pissed in a bucket for 2 days to watch a trailer.
At this time, the internet existed, but it was not the internet that you carry around on your phone in your pocket.
No, that crap was dial-up.
Okay? So these people would go watch Good Will Hunting in the fall of 1998. Yes, I'm referencing a Matt Damon movie. Okay?
They went to go see Good Will Hunting for the stupid trailer to that movie.
Yes, they would watch the trailer, and then they would melt away into the night. And then they would do it again the next night because they had to see it again. And that was the only way to do it.
Which, that's incredible that they were going to pay the full theater price.
Oh, yeah.
For just to watch a trailer, not even to stick around and watch Robin Williams and Matt Damon. And that reminds me also when Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was still on its way to coming out. I still remember I was in 6th grade. Freaking Ben Jenkins talking to me like at passing period after every class. Have you gone to see C-Spot Run yet to see the Harry Potter trailer? Did you see C-Spot Run yet? And I was like, oh my God. I don't know if I want to watch C-Spot Run just to watch the Star Wars trailer. You know what I'm saying? But when the original trailer for episode 1 came out, first they showed it in the theaters for a couple days. Then they released it on StarWars.com.
Yeah.
And that was a very different looking StarWars.com than what it looks like today. But you could stream the trailer, and I remember sitting there on my parents' computer, Windows 98, sitting there for 2 hours and 45 minutes to stream that teeny tiny resolution 2.5 minute trailer of Star Wars Episode 1. I distinctly remember that. But yeah, there was a huge petition, and a lot of people just started bootlegging the original Unaltered Trilogy. And when I was a teenager, I even did a little bit of that myself because I said, you know what? I want this. I want an original Unaltered Trilogy that I could have on a disc because these VHSs, they're going to rot someday, you know?
Yeah.
These discs, you could theoretically have that forever as long as it's in a good condition. So I went and I got this freaking software. Now remember, everything was not as advanced and easy as it is today. So you had to either get a computer tower that had the red, white, and yellow AV input for the cords, or you had to find some sort of a USB or some other cable to plug into your tower and then feed it in from a VCR or a DVD player. So I did that with my 1995 VHSs. And I fucking sat there on the computer with no sound going on because I'm just watching this happened. So the analog is recording, making a digital file, and then I burned these bootlegs of the original trilogy on VCD because I did not have a computer with a DVD burner, but I did know most DVD players will play video CD. So I made these bootlegs of the original Unaltered Trilogy, and you can see I've got them in plastic DVD cases. I've got cover art that I made for the front and back sides. I was such a freaking nerd that even on the actual discs, I drew and colored in the Star Wars logo. Okay? It says right there, Star Wars, original version, disc 1. And this is obviously what would later be called A New Hope. And I've got these two for Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I made these when I was a teenager. These are the product of love and joy. Between feeding the video into the computer tower, making, I forget it was either an AVI or an MPEG file, and then sitting there for another 2 hours while each disc burned for over an hour. We're looking at a 14-hour project.
Wow. To
have these ultimately crappy resolution because VCD, when it's high quality, it comes out VHS quality playing back on the disc. If you're got like an old box TV and you live in Hong Kong or in Singapore, not a big deal. So this is VHS quality of an old, already decade-old VHS. and it didn't come out very well, but I had a digital version of the original unaltered trilogy, and you bet people on the forums were hitting me up for me to mail them stupid CDRs.
I don't have 14 hours of my life left.
Well, I didn't have 14 hours of my life, but what I did is I saved like an image file of the disc, and it was a 700 megabyte. I didn't even know what the file extension was, but it's basically a snapshot of the disc. So if you save that, then when you make another copy, it only takes like 10 minutes to burn, as opposed to the 2
Now
hours.
I know
that
what
it
the
took
kids
to
are
process.
thinking about at home. How come you just didn't go to YouTube? YouTube did not exist yet.
YouTube, actually correct. When I made these versions, YouTube did not exist. And when it started to get popular, like 05, 06, dude, we're not talking about the same quality of videos. No, the internet was very different.
Yes.
Over a decade ago. I need all the young people in the audience to understand that.
This
but
was
I
something.
was an OT.com militant.
This is something that took an undertaking and took fan time and effort to put together.
So eventually, because Lucasfilm did take notice, a shitload of people are pirating these Laserdisc scans of the original trilogy or other versions that they made of it. They finally came out and they said, all right, fine. We're going to release a limited edition of the original trilogy. We're not going to sell it in a box set. You're going to have to get 3 different DVDs individually of each one of the films in the trilogy. Disc 1 is going to be the 2004 release, and then Disc 2 is going to have the original unaltered version as a special feature. And a bunch of people said, fine, we will settle for that. And so I still remember going to Walmart to buy these when I was 17. So we've got Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, and A New Hope. Now, what can you tell me about the cover art here? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
It's kind of like the best of hits of some of the icons of the original trilogy.
I noticed Empire Strikes Back is a little bit different, but with Episode 4 and 6, the limited edition DVDs, it looks like they made live action arrangements according to the original poster artwork.
Yeah.
So, for example, right here, you've got Han, Luke, and Leia. All of them got the blaster. You got Vader at the top right. Then you got Tarkin's face, Obi-Wan's face, the X-Wing. You've got Chewbacca, 3PO, and R2, like, all small. But it's not the poster. It is some kind of composite image that it looks like they took, like, the promo images for each character that they took in 1977. Like, they brought that out of the vault, remastered them, and made these covers. And we see the same thing with Episode 6. You see Carrie Fisher looking super hot in that bikini. And then you've got Luke Skywalker with the green lightsaber, and then Vader's mask ominously in the background. So these, it says Disc 1, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, and then commentary, blah, blah, blah. And then Disc 2, original theatrical version of Star Wars. And it just says Star Wars in italicized. Oh, and I forgot, it also had the demo from Lego Star Wars 2. I think it was the Mos Eisley level. It was actually a lot of fun. And it was really cool being able to pop that disc into my Xbox, because my Xbox did not have the DVD player extension, but nonetheless, I was able to play the game. Now, this was cool in theory, but here's the problem. The limited edition DVD release of the original unaltered trilogy was just a basic, very half-assed transfer of letterbox widescreen, not anamorphic widescreen, which means it's widescreen that was made for your old square TV.
Yeah.
Like, remember, Star Trek First Contact. Mm-hmm. That was one of the few movies that came out on VHS as widescreen only.
Yeah.
So, but remember, we didn't have widescreen TVs back then. They were 4:3 ratio. They were square TVs. So this is widescreen meant for your square TV. So if you watch it on any one of the TVs that 99.9999% of the American population has today, then you've got black space on all 4 sides of the picture. And that just sucks, man. Like, who wants a window of black abyss around your whole movie? We understand bars on top and on the bottom because a lot of us who were film buffs got used to widescreen back at the VHS era. But on a anamorphic TV, especially back in 2007, you didn't have a TV adjust setting.
No.
A lot of people just didn't have that. So you either, again, are back to watching this on your computer screen with your square computer screen, or you're watching black space around your whole thing, or you say, F it, why am I torturing myself with this black space around the whole thing? Let's just pop in the 1995 VHS.
Well, see, that's the other thing. Lucasfilm has to know that as technology advances, the medium therefore advances as well. So people are they're not always going to have the 1995 VHS edition, which I have stored away in my closet.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a TV anymore. I have a computer screen, for crying out loud. I have a laptop computer. So, and I have the DVD release from 2004, but I don't even watch that anymore because I have it all on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So if I feel like watching, which by the way, are the same versions that they released in 2004, the Super Duper edition.
Yeah, the Super Special Edition. So, obviously, letterbox widescreen on DVD and DVD only and not Blu-ray or streaming. Go F yourself. That was Lucasfilm's position. Obviously, there was a core contingent of hardcore fans that did not find that satisfactory. And so that's where we get Harmy's Despecialized editions. Now, I have not sat down and watched these because these are a labor of love. These really are high-definition transfers and fan remasters of the original Unaltered Trilogy, because when you try to download them, it's like 25 gigs a pop. And sorry, man, I don't have a spare 75 gigs on my laptop limited hard drive, even my other computer. Because I've worked as a writer, I've done video editing work for people, I've done multimedia projects. I got too much crap on my laptop to have just 100 gigabytes of Star Wars, and then also sitting there and then downloading that crap. Maybe there's a straight-up download link, but remember, a lot of these are hosted on these third-party download websites, so you got to sit through a stupid ad, and then you got to wait like 30 seconds, and then you got to do the stupid CAPTCHA, and then it's going to have a very limited speed download because it's that website, and if you want to have a fast download, then you got to be a pro member of whatever the stupid website is. So I ain't got the time to do that, but I'm going to find somebody who does have the Despecialized editions because I want to check them out. I really do want to check them out because I've heard so many wonderful things about these, and frankly, these are the cat's meow. What we wanted during the days of originaltrilogy.com, Harmy and his team of fans, the people who did these Star Wars Despecialized editions, they are like folk heroes in Star Wars. And you know what? They did not take away, in my opinion, they're not taken away from Disney, they're not taken away from Lucasfilm, because again, we not only bought the original trilogy already, we bought it 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
For some of us, Disney Plus, that I'm going to count that as time number 7. Shit.
Right, and it should be because you're still paying the $7.99 a month. I'm just giving it to Verizon instead of giving it to Disney.
Yeah, which Verizon already made their deal with Disney, so Disney's still getting paid.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to be able to check out the Despecialized editions very soon, but I'm going to throw a huge shout out to the folks who did that. Now, real quick, before we wrap up the episode, I did bring some special nostalgia.
Ah, crap.
All right, now, we have seen the Star Wars original trilogy unaltered versions, or more or less unaltered versions on VHS. We've seen the special edition on VHS, and then we have seen the super special editions on DVD, but there is yet another, besides Laserdisc, there is yet another platform on which you can own no longer being made editions of Star Wars on home video, and that is VCD.
Ah, jeez.
Video CD. Oh my gosh, I love VCD. I fell in love VCD as a teenager going to Chinatown, LA, and a lot of the folks selling bootlegs, before they even started selling DVD-Rs, they would sell all these Asian movies for, even cheaper and it was on video CD. So sometimes they would manage to compress the video file so that you would have, like, I've got an old bootleg VCD of Mexico that I got of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. And they compressed it enough that you've got the whole 2 hour and 45-minute movie on one single disc. But whether they put it on one disc or two disc, a lot of VCDs are bootlegs. But I found one that, if my knowledge is correct, if my research is correct, these are not bootlegs. These are real licensed home video editions of Star Wars. It just so happens that these video CDs were only released in Malaysia and Singapore.
Wow.
And this is the VCD of the original, of the special edition of the original trilogy. So 1997 special edition. And you remember these? This actually is the special edition video artwork.
Yeah.
Just in square because it's in a CD case instead of on a DVD case. But yeah, man, these don't look pirated to me because the quality is just so exquisite. Like, let's pull out this little pamphlet. So we're looking at the artwork for episode 4. And here on the cover, we've got Han Solo, Carrie Fisher, and Luke with the kind of, you've got the sunlight R around them, and then it goes into the blue space. So yeah, that's the special edition artwork. Then you've got what it says there on the back. But look at the disc. So it's on, instead of on one DVD, because a lot of Asian home video format, they just did VCD. A lot of people over there didn't have the money for DVD players yet. A lot of companies don't have the budget or didn't have the budget to make DVDs. So it was a lot cheaper for people to put a movie on 2 CDs instead of one DVD. So here we've got, each one of these is 2 discs, but the artwork is exquisite. So for episode 4, we've got 3PO on the discs, gold 3PO. Episode 5, we've got Darth Vader's mask. And then episode 6, we've got Yoda.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's actually a really cool picture of Yoda. Oh, and I love the insert for Return of the Jedi. It says, "I am a Jedi like my father before me." And look at the bottom, copyright 2000, Lucasfilm Limited and TM, all rights reserved. And then on the disc, it says blah, 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 and their associated logos are the property of 20th Century Fox Film Corporation. So I don't think the Star Wars special editions on VCD was ever pirated. I think these are legit, and they just had them in those 2 countries, because there's not a VCD market or there's not a legal VCD market over here. There was, but there isn't anymore. But that's one of those collector's editions I still have, because I just love having it, man. I love having all these different versions of Star Wars. And also, I've got a quick story that has to do with the special editions on VCD. So, have you ever listened to that show, Coast to Coast AM?
No.
Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. You gotta look it up on YouTube, look it up on Google. That's a really cool show where people call in and they talk about all kind of paranormal stuff or conspiracy theories. So, like, one episode, they'll have a dude on talking about UFOs, and then another episode, they'll be interviewing some ghost hunter. And then another episode, they'll be interviewing some retired FBI agent who's going to talk about, like, all these terrorist plots. And then in another episode, they're going to have, Illuminati stuff. And then, like, on another episode, it's going to be open lines and people calling in just to talk about creepy stories of things that have happened to them. Love that show. Absolutely love that show. Now, one of the there's a song, this outro song that they play on Coast to Coast sometimes called "Listening to Coast by this guy named UFO Phil. And they play it on the show because he's talked about, Sasquatch is in my backyard and there's aliens landing on my roof and I don't know what to do. And then he sings, "I turned on the radio and I listened to Coast. It's a cool song. So back during the days of MySpace. During the days of MySpace. Yeah, by the way, remember how in MySpace, everybody had to freaking learn HTML coding so that you could put cool crap and customize your page? So, of course, I had a Han Shot First banner for OT.com on my MySpace profile. And it wasn't just a banner, it was a hyperlink. So it says, Han Shot First, and then it flashes, sign the petition, OT.com. So, yeah, I had that. But I was friends on MySpace with UFO Phil. I thought this guy was so cool because I was a huge Coast to Coast fan. And we're talking about Star Wars on MySpace. And I'm like, yeah, I'm emailing back and forth, UFO Phil, we're talking about Star Wars. I'm just 17 years old. Like, it could be a lot worse. And I tell him, hey, man, I just got a copy of the Star Wars Special Editions on VCD, bro. Like, they're imported. They don't make them in this country. And he says, oh, that's really awesome. I used to have those too, except I lost them in the fire. Because I guess his home burned down at some point. So I told him, well, buddy, would you like me to burn a copy for you? Because I got a stack of CDs. It's not a problem. I'll send them right over. Don't even worry about the money. Yeah, I like your work. If this is what I can do to support the cause, then no problem. So I said, yeah, I really appreciate the offer. But, like, for me, because I'm a fanboy, I would have to have the originals. Like, I would have to buy these on eBay or something like that. And I said, dude, I understand. But I had made a video that I'd uploaded to YouTube of his song Listening to Coast, because at that time, he did not have a YouTube account. I say again, he did not have a YouTube account. So back when that crap was new, I made a song for him. Or I made a video for him, and I put a song, and I said, yo, UFO Phils. I put the URL to his website. Go check out his website. Support this artist's work. You can find his song occasionally on Coast to Coast. Check him out. And I sent him a URL for that video, and he said, oh, thank you so much for the video. Zachson is pleased. Now, UFO Phil has this whole mythology of who the good aliens are and the bad aliens are. This dude really thought about his brand. So Zachson is like the good alien. So he says, thank you for the video. Zachson is pleased. Fast forward like 8 years later, UFO Phil has obviously forgotten this conversation ever took place, because I get a notification in my email that one of my videos has not only been flagged by YouTube, but removed at the request of the copyright owner. And I'm going, UFO Phil, what the hell, man? I thought Zachson was pleased. And that is my very rabbit hole UFO Phil story that had to do with the Star Wars 1997 Special Editions on video CD. Well, Space Wizard, any final thoughts to wrap up Rangers of the Old Republic, Episode 2, Attack of the Special Editions?
I can't think of anything tonight. It's been a thrill to think about the past and my past experiences with the various media of Star Wars and the reactions of other fans and family and actually, I do have one last anecdote.
Go forth.
So watching the special editions in theaters was my first and my brother's first interaction with Star Wars actually at the theater. And that's why the special editions, even though they're not the best quality product, it was endearing to my heart to be at the theater and watching these there in the movie theater with a drink and popcorn and everything else.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was cool.
That was cool. And especially as a little kid, getting to see A New Hope special edition in theaters, that was awesome. That really was.
Yeah.
So I will always be grateful for that. Again, though, so they had a decent concept finally releasing them in the 2006 limited edition version, but it was such a half-assed release.
Yeah.
Okay. Lucasfilm, now that George Lucas no longer owns this, now that Disney owns this, and the mouse wants to make every freaking penny that he can, all right, cool. This is the time to do that. Give us a Blu-ray, or at least give us a streaming version.
Yeah.
And you know what? Fine. If the mouse wants to be a pirate about it, if you want to be Jack Sparrow about it, and you want to gouge us for it, and you want to make us pay $40 effing dollars for that streaming, lifetime streaming, as opposed to $15 or $20, there's people who will pay that. They want the original, unaltered trilogy in high quality. And despite all of Lucasfilm's excuses, they know it's possible because fans did it twice. They did it during OT.com, and then they did it with the Despecialized edition. My hat is off to Harmy and the other folks who made that possible, but that work that they did, that labor of love that these fans did, should never have been necessary. No. So we're saying to Disney now, release the original unaltered versions, all right?
I mean,
I don't feel bad about pirating the older copies that I've had of that, because you know what? I already said it. We bought that shit 6 times.
Yeah.
We bought it 6 times already.
Disney already knows that, and the reason, let's face it, the reason why Disney bought Lucasfilm wasn't for Indiana Jones, okay? Although I guess he's a part of the package deal, but they bought it because they know that Star Wars makes money. People love Star Wars.
Star Tours made money.
Right. They know that they could repackage it over and over and over again, and that there's a fan base that'll buy it. So we're not asking for them to put any more money into it. Just release what.
All right, so
we
like
see.
The Criterion Collection DVD edition of that movie Brazil, there's 5 different versions.
Yeah.
Or like the Criterion edition of Alexander by Ridley Scott has multiple cuts, including the 3.5-hour final cut, which is the one I like the best. Okay, The Beatles is another example of how some can be 6 or 7 decades old, 6 decades old, and it can still be repackaged and resold.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? They just repackaged, because Peter Jackson's got that documentary. So they just repackaged some of the albums, including Sgt. Pepper and the White Album. And what did they do? They included the 2009 remasters from 12 years ago. They did stereo remixes of the songs that sound great. So there's those versions. And then they released all these alternate takes of all the songs that, of the guy singing in studio.
Yeah.
So there's alternate takes, and then there's practice takes of them messed up in studio. So the Sgt. Pepper album, I think it only has 13 songs. This Super Deluxe Edition has 65 tracks. Like, that's really out there. You can listen to the hell out of this album from its
some of those are the same songs
to its death of its freaking death.
And those are some of the same songs,
but they're different mixes,
in different mixes.
Versions. Yeah, they do different little things, and those of us who are that level of fans, we like taking in all those details because we love this work so much. So Disney, now's the time, man. Release the original unaltered trilogy.
I mean, if the plan is to squeeze Luke Skywalker until pennies pop out of him, then you already have an audience of people who are going to buy the original version that they remember renting at the video store.
Yeah,
which is something that we did constantly. So,
dude, I remember waiting in line on a Friday night at Hollywood Video in San Dimas, California, to pay $5 to pre-order the VHS copy of Episode 1. Yeah, like that's the thing. We bought that crap 6 times already. People are going to keep pirating the original unaltered trilogy. So Disney, just release them. And we are signing out.
May the Force be with you.
And also with you, Space Wizard.